Hey guys, what's up? It's JR Huber, and in this video I'll be reviewing the Yuxin Blue, the oddly named 4x4 that, as far as I can tell, has nothing to do with the color blue. Either way, this cube had me pretty excited, and after using it for a few months, I figured it's about time to let you know what I think of it. The Yuxin Blue hits an interesting sweet spot between price to performance to adaptability. This thing costs around 16 bucks, so it's not trying to be super budget friendly, but it's also not trying to be like top of the line like the Moyu 4x4s, which really need a refresh if you ask me. We haven't had a new Moyu 4x4 in 2 years. Anyways, the Yuxin Blue is a bit smaller than a more normal 4x4 size and is the exact same size as the Mini Aosu. So I have two Yuxin Blues, one in black and one in stickerless. The stickerless one is the one I originally unboxed, and all I've done is lubricated it, adjusted the tensions, all that kind of stuff. The black one, however, has a spring swap. It has thunderclap springs in it, which, if you didn't know, were found to be supposedly much better than the stock springs. For the majority of this review, I'll be talking about the stickerless one, and then later I'll talk about the spring swap. The turning on the Blue is pretty good, but nothing to write home about. By far my favorite thing about the turning is the feel of the outer layers. They're super buttery and smooth with a bit of a bump along the turn, but nothing major. The second layers are similar but just a little slower. The feeling this cube has can mostly be attributed to the way I lubed it. When I got this cube, it was insanely slow. It was basically unusable. And after lubing it with a couple of different combinations, nothing really seemed to be working, so I had a thought. I remembered back to my early days of cubing, before silicone oil became a popular lubrication method, and I remembered that silicone spray was how we lubed all of our cubes. I also remember that just a couple of sprays to certain cubes would make them really, really fast. So I wondered if the same idea could be applied to the Yuxin Blue. I wondered if I could use silicone spray to make it really fast. Now, unfortunately, it did absolutely nothing to increase the speed of the cube, but it did leave the cube feeling super silky and buttery smooth. So in the end, I don't really regret the decision, but the Yuxin Blue overall is just way too slow. And that's really my major problem with it. It's hard to get through averages with it without my fingers getting sore after a few solves. I have had to increase the force of my turning and my turning style to account for this, but it's still not what I would prefer. That's where the spring swap comes into play, but I'll get to that later. So despite the slow turning, the performance of this cube is actually pretty amazing. I have my cube set to pretty medium tensions, and the corner cutting tolerance is around 1 piece with not much reverse, but reverse is less needed for 4x4 than for 3x3 in my opinion. Either way, locking hasn't been an issue whatsoever. I would also attribute that to the slow turning, as it does make the cube very controllable, so overshooting and locking up isn't a problem at all. Popping as well hasn't been much of a problem. Usually the piece in 4x4s that pops out is the smaller internal piece, but that piece has only popped out a few times in about the 500 or so solves I've done, so overall, really great anti-popping for this cube. Taking a look at the mechanism, the Blue does resemble the Aosu a fair amount, but I would say it's like a simplified Aosu. The pieces are just more square in shape and not as complex. The pieces fit together snugly, and the cube feels very stable as a result. So now I want to talk about the spring swap and exactly what it does to the Blue. So like I mentioned earlier, my black Yuxin Blue has thunderclap springs in it, and basically the thunderclap springs are just a little bit shorter and a bit more softer than the stock springs. So what does it do to the cube? Well, thunderclap springs turns the Yuxin Blue 4x4 from a mediocre cube into one of the best 4x4s on the market. Honestly, these cubes don't even feel like they're the same puzzle. The black cube is way faster than the stickerless one. Inner and outer layers both are super fast, even faster than my Mini Aosu, which is pretty surprising. The cube is even a bit uncontrollable now, but it could be slowed down if I wanted. And that's the major plus of the spring swap, is the speed. The downside of it is that you lose just a little bit of performance. Corner cutting isn't quite as great, and the cube does lock up a little bit, but popping is still non-existent, and the cube is way better with a spring swap than without it. So for my final thoughts on the Yuxin Blue, if you have the stock one, don't bother trying to speed it up like I did. It's not going to get any faster as long as you have the stock springs in it. So if you want to make it faster, just put the thunderclap springs in it. It helps so much. The Yuxin Blue is my new main, and I would highly recommend it if you don't have it, and if you do, definitely try the spring swap if you think it's too slow. I just got my single PB of 36.16. It's actually my first sub 40 solve ever, and I'm just loving it so far. It's a fantastic cube. Anyways, if you'd like to purchase this cube, the link will be in the description as always. Shout out to my friend friend Kenny, or Ken the Cuber, for setting up the black one and doing the spring swap at Nationals. And thanks to the Cubicle for making this video possible. If you guys like this video, give it a like, and if you haven't already done so, like my Facebook page, follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and of course subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.